Welcome to another virtual Live Talks Los Angeles event. We welcome Janet Evanovich and Lisa Scottoline to our series. We invite you to also visit our YouTube channel for over 300 conversations much like this. Janet's new book is Fortune and Glory, the 27th entry in the New York Times-bestselling Stephanie Plum series. Signed copies are available for purchase in the link in the comments section. Over the last 25 years, Janet has written 23 New York Times bestsellers in the Stephanie Plum series. In addition to the Plum novels, she has co-authored Fox and O'Hare series, the Night and Moon series, the Lizzie and Diesel series, the Alexandra Barnaby novels, and the graphic novel Troublemaker. Lisa Scottoline is a New York Times bestselling author and Edgar Award-winning author of 33 novels, including her latest work, Eternal, which is coming March 23rd, 2021, her first ever historical novel. Thanks to those of you who sent in questions that Lisa will bring up during the event. I will let you take it from here, Lisa.
Well, thank you so much, Ted. And Janet, this is so exciting. You know, I love you deeply, but people need to know that I am a major fan too. I am sure that everybody.
Okay, all right. So I can do that too, you know.
No, you can't. This date is about you, my dear. This is all about you. I loved the book, Fortune and Glory. I read it, like all of your books. As soon as they are published, I go, oh, like everybody watching this, and inhale it. The plot, give them the idea of the plot, which involves 6 lazy boy recliners, which is incredible. Well, how would you describe it?
The plot. I think it's an adventure story. I think it's, you know, there's a little sex, a little romance, some cussing, some Jersey attitude stuff. And Stephanie's grandma Mazer is in big trouble in this one. There's some really nasty guys who think she has the clue to a treasure, and they want to get the clue from her. And she doesn't exactly have the clue. So they have to find the clue, and then they have to get the treasure to save grandma. And it's kind of like the big bad wolf story when I talk about it. I don't know.
I loved it. Well, I was actually thinking, because it opens and it's Stephanie and grandma. I love grandma. I love all of these characters, and they're going through tunnels, and later they're in crypts and they're encoding things. And I said, this is the Ivanovich version of Da Vinci Code. Like, is there anything to that? I was like,
well, I feel very elevated.
By that. Hell, Da Vinci Code would be lucky.
I think it's more the Ivanovich version of Uncle Scrooge and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Donald Duck, going off to the Yukon.
Well, this is so great because I think it's interesting. Let's talk a minute about Stephanie and grandma and their relationship. I think it's so great because your novels have such a spirit of fun, which we can talk about, but there's also the family bonds that I find the kind of things that make me want to return to the series again and again. Tell me about that relationship. In fact, one of the audience question was, what was your, Carolyn wants to know, or wasn't Carolyn, Cynthia wants to know, what's the inspiration for Grandma Mazer? Talk about that relationship.
Yeah, Grandma Mazer is a combination of my Grandma Fanny and my Aunt Lena. And I was very close to both of these women, and they just had a real joy for life. And they knew who they wanted to be, and then they became that person. And age was never a part of it. Age never mattered. And so, if Grandma Mazer at an advanced age wants to go around in spandex biker shorts, she's going to do it. If she wants to go see, Chippendales. She's going to get a girlfriend and she's going to go do it. She's going to, she doesn't find limitations in her life. And my Grandma Fanny was like that too. And when I was a kid, I actually lived in this very huge extended family situation. My mom and dad and me and my Aunt Lena and my Uncle Mickey and Uncle Pete and Uncle Chris, and, in this big old family house in South River. And, every afternoon, all of the women in the neighborhood would come over and coffee clutch with Aunt Lena and my mom, and they would go over the obits. And then because there was very little to do at night in South River, they would go to the funeral parlor. So, I gave this to Grandma Mazer. But But Grandma Mazer and Stephanie have a special relationship, and I haven't really explored this in a lot of depth throughout the series. The last two books really kind of address that, and they spent a lot of time together, and we saw a little bit more about the emotion involved and the relationship between these two women and how they were sort of Grandma Mazer moving back in time, becoming younger, and Stephanie moving forward and becoming more responsible and, kind of joining together there. And we see a little bit more of their vulnerabilities in these two books. 27 and 26 were actually, 27 is kind of a continuation of 26. Uh-huh. You don't have to read both books, but they do go together. And so, they're my grandma books.
Oh, they're so great. I thought it was so interesting too, because, her mother, Stephanie's mom's in this book towards the end. We won't reveal what happens, no spoilers, but that relationship is so unique. It's sort of interesting too, reading them together, because, you see a softer side of Stephanie in this. To a certain extent, she has a bit of an identity crisis, doesn't she? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, a long time coming, Stephanie. Stephanie kind of floats through life a little bit. Some of us are born knowing where we wanted to go with a driving force and special talents. But most of us, that's not true. We kind of put one foot in front of the other and see what happens in our lives and, try to make the best of what we have. And maybe we don't have huge aspirations. We have, normal, small, wonderful aspirations, getting married and having kids or having a fulfilling job. And Stephanie sort of, she doesn't really have any of that. She's looking for it. She's waiting for that to happen in her life. I think it's one of the things that's appealing about her, is that, she's so average. She's Seinfeld. She's this sort of, I actually think Stephanie's a little boring. I think that all of the characters around her are a lot more interesting. And Stephanie kind of stands there, like Seinfeld, and all the crazy characters revolve around her. And, and from time to time, bring out different parts of Stephanie's personality.
Yeah, I can't completely agree, because I think Stephanie is so wonderful. And I think in a way, even as successful as you are, you don't get the credit for the characterizations in here. But we will talk for a minute about the people around Stephanie, because they're so great. Let's talk about Georgie Potts for a minute, because I think he's such a funny character and so adorable, but he comes up with something interesting. Tell us about him.
I don't know. Every now and then, I throw a character in. When he first appeared, when I first started writing, he wasn't going to turn out the way he did, but I started having so much fun with him that I couldn't help myself. I had to worry about him kind of taking over the book. It's like Lula. Sometimes I have so much fun with Lula that she overshadows Stephanie, and everybody else. And Georgie Potts was like that. Here's this guy who is really, pretty damaged. And we're realizing that, we're all damaged in one way or another. And some of us can rise above that. And Georgie Potts has not been able to do that yet. He's kind of into it. He's like, yeah, I'm living in my parents' basement, and this is pretty good. I wear my pajamas every day. And
he's like lightheaded, and he's faint, and he's feeling nauseated, and he's going to throw up. And
oh yeah, he's got all this stuff going. He's just a mess. He is just a total disaster. And and his thing is that he's got PTSD, and he got it from a bad college experience in New York. And I thought maybe I was going to hear from people about that. I'm sort of waiting.
Oh, I loved it.
Well, what I've noticed is that people don't necessarily pick up on a lot of the offensive political stuff that I do. They just accept it, as being, that's Janet from Jersey.
We love
and go with it in the spirit that it's meant, which is just, good, honest fun.
Right. And yet he comes up with, he really precipitates to a certain extent Stephanie looking inward. I thought that wonderful line was, you're so deft as a writer. And as a writer, I appreciate this so much. Nothing is belabored. Nothing is boring, right? And he comes up with it, everybody wants to be a better version of themselves. Right? I thought that was just wonderful. Do you think about that when you're writing? Does it just come to you?
No, I think about that myself all the time. God, I wish I wasn't such a jerk, I wish I was a better version of myself. I just gave it over to Georgie Potts.
Well, let's circle back and talk about Lula, because everybody loves Lula. I have to say, in terms of deft writing, that you called her a customer happy. She used to be in the customer happiness business. I just love that. That just cracked me up. Also, she has nipple radar. Maybe you want to explain the nipple radar that Lula has.
Yeah, well, when she's in a dangerous situation. Well, this just occurred. This just happened, and then all of a sudden, she came on with this nipple radar, and when she's in she just gets the tingles, and I mean, and Lula's a big woman, so when she gets nipple radar.
Watch out.
Don't get too close because she could poke your eye out. So
yes, plus she has big nipples, bigger than Stephanie.
Oh yeah.
I was like, God bless Janet Evanovich that she is writing about someone's nipple size on page 7. I just love it so much.
Well, you got to grab the reader with whatever tools you have. and I have to say, okay, so I'll tell you, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but it's recorded, so. In all of the series, Lula has always called herself a hoe. Right. And she's very proud of being a hoe. She was a damn good hoe. She was the best hoe she could be. And so for this book, I have a brand new publisher and a new editor. And when I sent it in, he said, oh, we can't call her a hoe. That's, that's not nice. That's so demeaning. And like, I was afraid, they were going to send the book to the sensitivity reader,
No.
and so I took out all of the hoes in the book, and I gave her other things, like an erectile engineer, or or a happiness. And when I started doing it, I realized it was so much more fun than having her be a hoe. So I have a whole list of this stuff now that I can call Lula.
At some point, you call Lula a service provider, which I thought was also brilliant. But you know what I find appealing about Lula, and fill me in if you intend this or you feel this way, which is that she at one point she says, "My booty is perfect, just like the rest of me." I love her positivity about who she is. She's very, very grounded. Do you ever think about that? Or is that in contrast to Stephanie, who is trying to find out really who she is?
No, I that's very intentional, because I think this is important for all of us to love whoever we are. I mean, that doesn't mean that we can't make ourselves, try to make ourselves better, as we've already discussed. Right. But Lula is a big woman, and she is out there with it. She is going to wear outrageous clothes. She's going to have pink sparkles in her hair. She has, she's on steroids, but they're natural steroids. She's just more of everything, and she loves it, and she goes with it. And every now and then she'll decide she wants to be, a model, and she'll go on a diet. I don't remember what book it was, but she went on every diet that I've ever been on. I gave to Lula. She was like on Atkins, walking around with a bag of bacon. And that was a bunch of years ago. But for the most part, Lula, she likes herself. She's Lula.
And one of the questions was, Kate wants to know, is she drawn from real life?
No, Lula is one of the fictional characters. I wish she was real life. I'd like to hang out with her. I think she's a hoot. Lula started out as, just this sort of minor character in book 1. She was a hooker. There were 2 hookers, and she had a very horrific thing happen to her in book 1. And then I just kept thinking about her. I couldn't get her out of my mind when I started book 2. And she just sort of came back in book 2, and I made her working at the bail bonds office. And with every book after that, she just kind of grew into the series until now. She's like, she's irreplaceable. I mean, I couldn't imagine not having Lula. She's the fun part. She's a very good way to bring humor into the series, because
Right.
there are some people that can't be too funny. Ranger and Joe Morelli, they're not funny. They're serious hot guys.
Well, I was just about
Lula is not.
No, she really is. And I was just about to turn to Ranger Morelli, because there is a question about that. And of course, that's what have you ever thought about getting Stephanie to choose between Morelli and Ranger finally?
Yes, but not finally. This is rough between them all the time. But, I hate to turn this into a family saga. Because some of the fun of this series is the adventure of the relationships. Absolutely. And, I patterned this to some extent after Moonlighting. I love Moonlighting.
Right.
And after Maddie and Dave did it, I was like, done, and there's no reason to watch this anymore. It's fun.
So great, because I think every reader probably has a favorite. I go back and forth, although I love your turns of phrase. I think these perfect so deft turns of phrase with respect to each guy. Morelli has testosterone to spare. So true. Hot cop. Who doesn't want that? And Ranger, this is a sentence I love. When I first met him, his address was a vacant lot. And I thought it's interesting because those sentences kind of embody those characters to a certain extent. Do you think, or no?
Yeah, I think they do. And there are two characters in this series that have had a lot of growth, personal growth. One of them is Lula and the other is Ranger. Ranger, both of them started out from sketchy beginnings. And Ranger started out as a bounty hunter, living in a vacant lot, and really pulled himself up. And now he's this successful businessman. And so he's an interesting character. And in the beginning, he never spoke. He was very mysterious. He's not quite so mysterious now.
Right.
But there's a very big difference between him and Joe, because they're both bad boy heroes. And I know you know what a bad boy hero is, because
I married them, then I divorced them.
Similar beginnings. And so they're both bad boy heroes, but Ranger can really do anything because, he's not a cop. So there's the line between what's good and bad and what he can and cannot do is a big gray line where with Morelli, he's the man. He's the cop. He's fitting into society. He's got a house now. So there's a difference between those two guys.
And it's interesting too, because I think that this is another perfect example of sort of just the deftness of it, that there's issues of morality in this book, as there are in all of your novels. The cops they are honest. The bad guys, you examine that in a light way. There's bad guys in this that you laugh at, but they also kind of scare you. I mean, there's no joke. I mean, it's it's interesting because one of the questions was Paula, which kind of ties in with this, is did you set out to write a funny murder mysteries, or did it just happen because of the character's development?
No, I've always been funny. I have a hard time with the serious stuff. And when I was writing romance, I was their token humor writer. Nobody was writing funny stuff when I started romance, and these, crazy things were coming into it, and they were like, they sort of didn't know what to do with me. And so then I was their token humor writer. And when I had to leave romance, and I moved over into the crime genre, I took that part with me,
right? Because
I find it difficult to write without the humor, and I think that's what makes my voice different from other people's voice.
Yes, your voice is absolutely dead on, unique, and I think the book, as are all your books, sort of perfect for these difficult times. I think you just know you're going to laugh. You're just going to laugh through the book. You're going to love the characters. I also thought this was interesting vis-a-vis setting and the world you have created in the Berg. You said the most profound thing in this book about, she has Rex. We all know Rex. We love Rex. And you said that Rex's his little terrarium, his aquarium, was like the Berg. And I thought, can you fill us in about that? I thought that was really profound, actually.
Yeah, because he lives in a glass aquarium.
Yeah.
And so you see everything that he does. And Stephanie feels like that about the Berg. I mean, and she loves the Berg, you know, her family's there and she has her roots there. But there are no secrets in the Berg. You know, it's a place where people don't sit, you know, everybody has a back deck now. You know, we live in our backyards. When I grew up, everybody lived on their front porch or their front stoop. You were stoop sitters. And in the Berg, which is, you know, the Berg as it was probably 30, 40 years ago, people are stoop sitters. And so they see everything. And they gossip and they get together, you know, at the funeral home and at the deli and at the bakery, and there are no secrets. And so, you know, so it's like Rex's aquarium that, you know, nobody has a secret. They see everything you're doing.
I thought it was so great. And I think, you know, it's interesting because I was looking through vis-a-vis that, you know, Stephanie will say, well, she heard it from Uncle Mickey from down the street because he was at the bar with and you know, it's all, you're right. But what's interesting about it is the connectedness of the characters. I think that's what people return to. The friendship between Lula and Stephanie, the bonds of family between the family, and even with the minor characters all in this universe inside this wonderful aquarium that is, you know, Evanovich world. It's so, so great. In fact, this is sort of apropos because somebody said, if Tara Lee, if you could invite one of your characters over for Thanksgiving dinner, who would you choose? That's a tough question.
That's a really tough question.
I know.
Wow. Maybe it would be Georgie Potts.
I love Georgie. He would see, there's one point he thinks he sees things floating and he thinks it's escort angels waiting to take him to heaven. Like it's so great. You know, also it's interesting vis-a-vis Thanksgiving because food is so much a part of the Berg. Let's talk about that for a minute. I think you have a whole section on food in here. I just I get hungry reading it. I mean, let me take a second to. Food is important in the Berg. It's the glue that holds everything together. News travels through the bakery and the deli. Bread is blessed at the church. Charities are founded at bake sales. Families sit at the table for dinner, whether they like it or not. Janet, talk about that a little. It's so.
That's my life.
It means so much to me. I think it's a core of love, and I can't figure out why. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, because that's my life, right? You know, and that's what we do to our kids, and that's what my parents did to me. I bring them over to the house with pineapple upside down cake, you know, and you know, we tempt them over here and then we put the guilt on them. Oh, I made a pineapple upside down cake. You mean
you actually do that? Oh my God.
Of course I do.
I know, but it's also, that's a loving act. You made something. You're a busy lady. You got a lot to do. But you made that food and that love connection is so clear in this book. And all of them, in this world, they drive each other crazy, but they also love each other like crazy. When they're not playing with flamethrowers and various incendiary devices, which is always the best part of anything. Let me make sure I get into all these questions. This is a good question too, from Sharon. I love the series. If you had to choose a different career other than an author, what would it be? And if Stephanie ever changes careers, what might she be? Would it be working at the button factory or the feminine products plant?
No, I think Stephanie and I would choose the same career. Okay, we would want to be a singer in a bar wearing a slinky red dress and sitting on a piano. That's my goal in life.
Like Michelle Pfeiffer in the Fabulous Baker Boys.
Yeah, that would be it.
That's
my second career.
In our heads, we're all a version of Michelle. That's our better version, is maybe Michelle Pfeiffer.
That would be the better version. Yeah.
Too funny. Let's see, other questions. this is an interesting question I think people ask authors, and I'm curious too. Caroline would like to know, or Carolyn, where do you get your characters' names from? I think the names are sensational, by the way.
My yearbook, my high school yearbook. That's true, I do.
Do you ever hear from the people?
Yeah, from time to time. And I would, when I go out on book tour, every now and then somebody from high school, stops in to say hello, and and it's always, very strange because I'm like, wow, what happened to them? I mean, I'm only 35 and they look so old. And, because Stephanie and I don't age. I made a decision where we're just going to stay the same. And so now I'm actually younger than my children. And,
I know. I love how that's part of the aquarium too. Everybody knows everybody from high school. Everybody knows everybody from way back, which I think is so, in terms of characterization, is so good because they all have a context. And it just enriches all the characters. It's just amazing. Let's see, here's another question. Any plans for, where'd it go? Any plans for any other movies? Lori would like to know, are there any more plans for films based on the Stephanie Plum character?
Not at this time. I would love to see another movie. I'd love to see a television show. I mean, I think TV would great. I would like to see the Wicked series on television. I think that would be a lot of fun. And, my agent's kind of working on it, but I haven't heard any, big news yet. We're waiting. Fingers crossed.
Oh, it's amazing. Now, mine too, because I loved the movie. I just love this character. I love the whole world. It's interesting. Vis-a-vis, there's another question. Do you ever, obviously the basic question, where do you get the idea for the next book? Because I think every book has such a spirit that you return to and you actually crave. It's like your favorite meal in a restaurant. I want the salmon with the couscous on the side. This is a high adventure kind of. Do you think about the next one? Do you have an idea for the next one? Or does it come to you?
Yeah, no, I think about books, like maybe 2-3 books ahead. It isn't like, there's a big outline or anything, but I kind of know where I'm going with them. And usually it revolves around the relationships with the people. And this was a little different, because I decided to marry Grandma Mazer off to this gangster, he's a killer, but it's okay because he's a nice guy when he's not killing people. And she was only married to him for 45 minutes anyway. And, so it's okay. Mercy things.
Right. You got the recliner.
So I sort of have an idea about where the next Plum is going. It's a little complicated because they decided that I was going to do this spinoff with this Gabriella Rose that I mentioned in this book.
Just about to talk about her.
Yeah. And so right now I'm writing about Gabriella Rose. And so by the time I'm done with this book, I won't have any idea where I'm going to go with Stephanie Plum again. I'll have to do some rereading and think about it. It'll be in another space and another time.
Let's talk a minute about Gabriella because she is super hot and has awesome clothes. I want all her clothes. And, Stephanie's a little worried about what's going on with Morelli, if anything is going on with Morelli and her. So tell us about that.
No. I'm not going to say anything about that.
Tell us about her. Ruin it. Tell us about her. How is she different from Stephanie? How is she like her? Well, she likes Chardonnay and Stephanie hates Chardonnay. I hate Chardonnay, so I'm a Lambrusco girl.
Oh, the Chardonnay thing. Yeah. I know. That was another thing that I had so much fun with Lula, that Lula ordered Chardonnay just because she thought it sounded classy to say, I want a Chardonnay when she was at a bar. Anyway, the thing about Gabriella Rose is they wanted to have a spinoff. And so I put her in this book and I didn't really know who she was. It's very hard creating a new character. Right. You're starting over and you're trying to get other people out of your head. And so I put her in there, kind of a placeholder, gave her some clothes, and hair and everything and some skills. And then when I actually sat down to write the book, and I had to think about who she was, I started to round her out a little bit and give her, some background and where does she come from? What are her goals? Why is she the way she is?
Mhm.
And in this book, it turns out that she thinks she was related to Blackbeard. She's very into pirates.
Which I love, because I think all of these, even though they're so much fun, I think part of the reason women like them, and men too, but I love that they're empowered women, that in their own way, they have a great sense of their own power. And it's so great and so inspiring. We should probably, because I know a lot of people watching this probably are writing, and I wish them all luck, because believe me, if, we can do it, anybody can do it. But what's your process like? They might be interested in that. Had you outline, or I can guess the answer to that, but tell us about that.
I don't do a big outline. I do a very sketchy outline. I know where it's, how it starts, how it ends. I know a few things in the beginning, in the middle. I know what I want to accomplish in the book in terms of relationships and growth in the characters. Mm-hmm. And then I start writing. And when I go to bed at night, I take a steno pad with me and I write down a little synopsis of what I did during the day. And then I write a little bit about where I'm going to go tomorrow and maybe the day after. And that's really the way I outline. I outline a day or two ahead as I go. Mm-hmm. And then, it fits into the larger scheme of things. And I like continuity. I work every day, 7 days a week.
Me too.
Sometimes, I only sit down for a couple hours in the morning. Actually, that's pretty unusual because, I'm up at 5 and I take my little dog Ollie out to tinkle and I make coffee and then I'm in my office working and I work until lunchtime. And that's always the best part of the day for me. And first of all, I love getting up in the morning and starting my day and going off into Stephanie's world or whoever's world that I'm in, Gabriella Rose's world. We have this amazing opportunity to go into another world. Not everybody has that, but you and I, we can do that. We can get up in the morning and leave our world behind.
Very much.
And,
but interesting, readers do it. When I picked this book up and I was like, in your world, and it felt so good. It feels like coming home when I read you. It really does. And so you give people that. They get that in your books. And it's just, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, but so do you do a quota? Like I do, I try to do 2,000 words a day, which will take all day and all night, but I have no personal life. I mean, what about you? Do you do a word quota, like 500 words and I'm done?
No, I just work all day. I'm very slow. I do a lot of thinking and then I type 2 sentences. I'm not a writer that just spews on the page. It takes me a long time. I can write a book in 4 or 5 months, but my ass is in the seat all day to do that.
Right.
And so I don't necessarily have a quota. I would love to be able to do 3 pages a day. And when I get really up against it, and I get a bag of chips and a glass of wine, I can do 5 pages if I really have to.
I was going to ask you that. What carbs go along with the writing process?
Well, it changes. I used to be hooked on cheese doodles. And then when I would finish a book, I would have to get a new keyboard because they'd all be clogged up with the orange doodle dust.
That's so literary.
Yeah. And then at some point my body just said, no, you're not going to do this anymore. And so I switched over to, but I'll eat anything that's salty and crunchy. And it gets the synapses going.
You need I find that you need the sugar thing after the salty thing. Like donuts. There's so many donuts in your book. Yeah. I love donuts so much. I wanted to eat donuts.
Yeah, I have a constant weight problem. Because when I'm really, under deadline, I will eat my way through a book, and then I have to really pull myself back and try to get rid of a couple of the pounds. And
right. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's a hard job. And this isn't, people read my books and they think, that because they're easy to read, they're easy to write.
Yes.
And it's just the opposite. And this is really a hard job. I work really hard at it. And I know you do too. I have to tell you, I started reading Eternal. For all those folks out there, I have an advanced copy of Lisa's book. And I started reading this. This is a serious, beautiful,
Not going to talk about me. We're not talking about me.
No, it is beautifully written. And I got to 10 pages in this book. And I said, that's it. I'm not reading this anymore because I am never going to finish my own book because I couldn't stop reading it. I was like, this is not working for me. So I gave it to my husband. He's reading it now. And I said to him, you cannot give it back to me until I'm done with my own book.
That's so sweet. No, but I think your point is really true. And I think it's good for writers who are listening to this. And you would encourage them, wouldn't you? You have any advice for them?
For writers?
Yeah, people who want to write.
Yeah. If it's important to you, you just keep doing it. I was unpublished for 10 years. So if you haven't been sending those query letters out for 10 years and collecting rejections, then, I don't want it. You're not getting any sympathy from me. Right. Because, it's hard. It's not easy. Every now and then somebody has some luck at it, but I think you keep doing it. You look at it like a job. If you had a job working at 7-Eleven, you would show up on time, you'd put your time in, even if you didn't want to do it, you get there and you do it and you do the best that you could. And writing is just like that. You try to be a better writer all the time. I think joining writers organizations is good. Romance Writers of America and International Thriller Writers, ITW. They're both great organizations. They allow people to get peer groups and to learn about agents and publishing process and to go to conferences and increase their skills. Skills are very important in writing. Nobody should underestimate being able to diagram a sentence. It's
right. And it's interesting because vis-a-vis, to go back for 1 second to your process, do you edit while you're writing or do you wait till you get to the end?
I edit while I'm writing. When I'm done with the book, I'm pretty much done.
Oh,
that
wow.
wasn't the case when I started. I mean, when I started, I would do several versions of the book, and then it would go to other people, and they would do several versions. But it goes faster now.
Right. And for people who are listening too, I always is it fair to say there's no right way? Can we tell them that? Because I think, you're so impressive. They've read all of your books and and I think you make such a good point. And it's one that if you don't write, you don't know, which is, it's like, when it reads easy, it writes hard. It takes that. For me, when I read this, I go, this must have been edited. It's amazing. You're so good now. You don't have to edit it after, but I have to go through like a lot of drafts. Well, is there a right way to write, or what would you say to people in terms of just encouragement?
Yeah, no, it's like Grandma and Lula. You do it your way, and you keep doing it. You make it work. You do it your way, and you make it work.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Or it's even like this book. I mean, I don't know if you had the plot plotted out, but it's a pretty complex plot. They have to follow some clues. They got to figure it out. They have to avoid being blown up or blowing up another car. Well, maybe that doesn't happen, but you don't plan that, right? You just how would you describe it? Do you put yourself in a zone and then?
No, I just totally ripped off Indiana Jones.
Well, you improved it, girl. That's all I have to say.
Well, I'll steal from the best of them.
Well, this has been so wonderful. I love talking to you. This is, and I hope people have enjoyed this because I think you put it all out there just like you do in the book and everything you do. It's authentic and it's unique. And I can't wait for the next one. Yeah. Well, it's been great. I think we should do this more. I think we need our own show. We should. This is the most fun I've had in a long time.
Yes, indeed. That was lots of fun. Thank you, Lisa, for chatting with Janet. Thank you, Janet, for being part of Live Talks Los Angeles. Again, Janet's new book is Fortune and Glory. It is available wherever books are sold, and you can get a signed copy in the link in the comments section. Thanks again to both of you.